Can you be forced to leave a country in which you have been living for 40 years? Yes, you can, according to a relatively new verdict from the Swiss Supreme Court that was recently published on the court's website. In this video, I will let you know what led to this situation and give you some information about what the procedure is to take a foreign residence permit away in Switzerland. And of course, how to avoid that this will happen to you or to anybody that you know. In the case that I mentioned before, the situation that led to the verdict and that was presented to the judges was the following. In 1983, at the age of 19, a woman moved from her home country in Turkey to Switzerland to live here with her at the time husband. For this purpose, she received a Swiss B residence permit. 6 years later, in 1989, she received a Swiss C settlement permit, which at the time was easier to obtain because there were less requirements to fulfill. In 1985, 1989 and 1997, the woman had 3 children, which were all adults by the time that the verdict was rendered, which was in December 2023. In March 2006, she separated from her husband. She never worked in Switzerland before, so she started to apply for social welfare at that point. In 2011, the divorce from her husband was finalized. By August 15, 2022, the woman collected a total amount of social welfare of 351,546 Swiss francs, which corresponds to more than 388,000 US dollars. Because of this huge amount of social welfare, the judges of the Swiss Supreme Court decided that the woman had to leave Switzerland to go back to her home country, Turkey, at the age of 59, despite the fact that she's been living in Switzerland for 40 years before that. In my opinion, this case shows why integration in a foreign country has to be an ongoing process. If you live in Switzerland and you go from a B to a C permit, which is a more secure permit, to put it in simple ways, because the requirements to revoke it are more strict, your integration should not just simply stop. Instead, you should always aim at improving your integration until you reach a level at which you can obtain the Swiss nationality or the Swiss citizenship. This basically means keeping a clear criminal record, avoiding any form of debt or government assistance, and continuously improving your language skills. Another important point is to form meaningful connections with locals in Switzerland. Now, many people have the impression that the longer you stay in a country, the safer you are, simply based on the time that you've been living there. But as we saw in the case before, that is not necessarily true. There are scenarios, as we've seen, in which a permit can be revoked even after 40 years, and that is a really long time. And the thing is that there is another perspective from which you need to look at it. Because the longer you live in a country, the higher the expectations regarding your integration will be. For example, if you move there and you don't speak the local language fluently, after a month, 2 months, 3 months, or even after a year or 2, it is excusable up to a certain point. However, if you still don't speak the language at all after 10 years of living there, it will raise certain questions regarding your integration and the situation will be judged differently. But why do you have to make all these efforts regarding your integration, speaking purely from a legal perspective? The answer is because if you're living in Switzerland while having a residence permit here, your integration will, sooner or later, be evaluated. Either because you apply for a better permit or for the Swiss nationality, or the opposite. Because your permit is at risk and the migration law authority initiates the revocation process. This is often the case either if you were found to have violated the law by committing some sort of crime or if you were collecting social welfare. You usually get a warning letter by the migration law authority stating that your permit is at risk and that they consider revoking it. This will start the process. The migration law authority will then give you the chance to explain yourself and the situation, and they might ask you to hand in additional documents or answer additional questions to clarify the facts before they make their decision. If the decision is negative and they decide on the withdrawal of your permit, you will then have 30 days time to make an appeal against that decision. There will either be 1 or 2 cantonal instances to which you can send your appeal to. One of them will be a first court of law. If this court decides to confirm the decision of the migration law authority, you can then send an appeal to the Swiss Supreme Court. And that's usually your last chance, because if they confirm the decision as well, you will have to leave the country. But the thing you want to remember from this video is to avoid getting into a situation like this in the first place. And some of the best advice I can give you here as an attorney working in the field of migration law in the public sector is to stay away from social welfare. Because from a legal perspective, it is a ticking time bomb if you have a residence permit. Once you collect more than a certain amount of social welfare, you and your family risk losing your permits. Another problem if you're living in Switzerland as a foreigner while receiving social welfare is that you have no chance to get a better permit or the Swiss nationality. And unlike in other countries, in Switzerland social welfare must always be paid back if possible. So if you win the lottery, for instance, or if you inherit a lot of money, the amount of social welfare that you owe to the state will first be taken before you receive your share. But since life can be unpredictable, there might be a situation at some point in your life in which you have to apply to and collect social welfare. If this is the case, and if you are a foreigner living in Switzerland with a residence permit, your main priority must be to do whatever you legally can to pay back the amount of social welfare that you received, even if it is in small parts and or over a longer period of time. This will be an important factor that has to be taken into consideration by the migration law authority if they ever make a decision on your residence permit and on your future in the country. Now let's go back to the case that we talked about in the beginning. When giving the reasons for its decision, the Swiss Supreme Court stated that the main reason for the revocation of the Turkish woman's permit was that she never made any proven efforts to integrate in Switzerland in a professional, linguistic or social way. Instead, her integration was considered very poor regarding all of these aspects. In addition to that, the judges saw no chance of her ever being financially independent. Now, had she made different decisions and decided to start working here and pay back some of the debt that she owed to the state, the outcome might have been different. So make sure you do better, and if you ever live in a foreign country, make sure you prioritize your integration there. It will make your life a whole lot easier in many ways. With this last bit of advice, I'd like to end this video today. It is a bit different than other videos I have done because it is more based on the facts of an individual case. But I do hope that you found it interesting. If so, give it a thumbs up if you liked it and subscribe to the channel if you would like to see more in the future. Also, if you have any additional questions, let me know in the comment section down below. And finally, as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to be talking to you again soon.